Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting. Alrighty, so what we're going through now is what is self-validation? All right, so first we got to understand is how do we validate, like how we currently validate our thoughts, beliefs, values, our feelings, our emotions, and so much more. All right. So an important realization that I had was, why did I need to validate my beliefs or the beliefs I held with the external environment? And the big realization was around thinking back to my life and my childhood was in the schooling system and in university, where nothing I did meant anything unless the teacher or the authority figure told me that it was right or gave me the grade. So to understand this is in our early development, okay, when we're developing, our identity of self, our identity of how the world works, our identity of the internal value that we hold as individuals was around nothing mattered unless the teacher, okay, or the authoritative figure told us that it was valued. So if I wrote an assignment, that assignment was worth whatever the teacher marked, which is completely backwards and wrong in the real world. So when we're in an environment where we have a overarching truth of this is right and this is wrong, which does not exist in the world, just remember everything is only true until it's proven to be wrong, or everything is only ever wrong until it's proven to be true. It's how life works. It's how reality works. It's how society works. But so much of our society is built on, you're only attractive if external factors, i.e. your peers, i.e. the external environment, i.e. whoever you're talking to, agrees with you. So if you feel like you're an attractive person or a valuable person and your external environment doesn't agree with you, your peer group doesn't agree with you and they say, no, you're not attractive. We don't feel like you're attractive. Then what happens is you or me gets beaten down until we agree and take on that consensus. So we got to understand that, our beliefs, our feelings, and all of that, okay, especially with that, when we're talking about self-validation, is I'm not allowed to feel attractive unless I have validation of it. And I am only allowed to feel attractive while that validation is coming in. Outside of that validation, you know what I mean? That's how we've trained our brain over the last bit and throughout our life because of society, is that you are what others see, not what you see. Now, everyone will tell you that, yeah, you're exactly what you see, what you think matters. But the thing is, if you believe that you need to validate externally instead of internally, okay, and I'll get into that in a second, the difference between them is that your opinion or that validation is only relevant until it's taken away or until something happens. Like, for example, if one day I wake up and I've got big pimples everywhere, okay, I could have been told how attractive I was the day before, but now because my exterior has changed and I fear that my external environment is going to focus on those, blemishes or negative aspects, I'm going to start to bring down that previous validation to what I think it should be now. okay, or to the level that I think the environment will bring me to. So understanding that validation can only happen internally. When we validate externally, we constantly have to have our external environment basically sending a feed or a loop back to us, constantly saying, you are worthy, you are attractive, you are this, you are that. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to understand, and this was a great realization that I had, was it doesn't matter what the external environment says, I need to personally validate internally to where I choose that, yes, I believe I'm attractive. Yes, I believe I'm a valuable person, and it doesn't matter what other people say to me. Now, this isn't to say that we ignore signals from our external environment, but we have to understand that they're not the dictating factors to our internal states. Okay, so our external environment is showing us, how we're interacting with the world, how we're engaging with our environment. Okay, so if I'm going around and I'm being, a piece of shit to everyone, and I'm treating people like they're nothing, okay, and my external environment is attacking me, that's a signal that maybe my actions aren't right. But if I'm able to assign and look at, well, what are the actions that I want to present to the external environment? What do I think, my value is? What do I think are proper thoughts or my true thoughts? What are my true beliefs? What are my feelings about myself? Okay. And then I take that external, like the external, I don't know how to say it, basically the feedback from my external environment, and I put it through the lens of, is that feedback aligned with what I think and feel and value and believe about myself? Okay. So what we have to do is we have to use our internal validation as our foundation or our rock, right? So all external, experience, all external validation or anything like that, or events or situations, we take back, and then we look through our lens of what we think, what we feel, what we believe about ourselves, and we're able to identify, is this true or is this false? You know what I mean? So if I feel that being a kind person, being a good person, and I believe that I'm a good person and that the actions I take are in the best interest of other people, and I take those actions, and people in my external environment attack me, or emotionally, physically, verbally, whatever it may be, okay, I'm able to then go, well, these are my beliefs around what I think are, valuable traits, or how I believe people should act, or how I believe I should act, right? And I'm able to then put them side by side and identify, well, these aren't true because these are just other people's opinions. And if they are true and they are rooted in fact, or they are a result of my behaviors, I'm then able to look at my beliefs, look at my thoughts, look at my feelings and emotions, and change what needs to be changed. All right. So that was why, I had to learn how to validate internally, was because all I ever did was externally validate all of my thoughts, all of my fears, all of, my feelings, my beliefs. And the problem with that was I never felt aligned to who I was presenting. And that's a very important thing to remember, is we want to always be aligned with, who do we want to be? Who do we believe we should be in terms of me as a person? Who should I be, for me, not for anyone else, but for me? You know, what makes me feel good? What lights me up internally? Because when we get down to those truths, what we really find out is what is really important to us in life. Okay. So basically, the important realization that I had was, why did I need to validate these beliefs I held, you know, before I would feel the effects of it? So why do I need to be told I'm attractive before I feel attractive? Why do I need to be told that my belief or my idea on what to do or how I should pursue my life is right before I feel successful? Because that's one of the things. Majority of people, you know, that don't feel successful is because their idea of success is determinant on someone else's belief of success. So if they don't share those beliefs, if they don't, you know, get the right like feedback from their environment of the peers that they're trying to imitate or impersonate, what generally will happen is you have every signal of being successful in your own right, but you never feel it. Okay. But even worse was the realization that all it took was one small comment, and I lost everything that I had built up within myself that day. So you gotta understand, with self-validation, okay? Self-validation is not something that's just we do it once a month and we're good. You know what I mean? Self-validation is in every decision, every thought, every moment. We have to validate, is this action authentic within me? Is this who I want to be? Is this how I want to present myself? Is this the real me, or is this conditioning from my external environment? Okay. And the worst part is when we use our external environment as our form of validation, if that external environment shifts against us, or things happen in our external environment that don't align with what we think, feel, and believe, then everything that's come before it is undone. Trust me, I've been there, I've lived it. So in sales, you know what I mean? We can be hitting targets for 6 months. Every week we hit our targets, right? And we have one bad week. Boom, we're just brought right down, because for the last 6 weeks, our external environment has been supporting our consensus of what we feel, of that we feel we're good, of that we feel we're valuable. And then all it takes is one bad week, and then we're back down. Okay. So that's the important thing, is when we validate externally and when we validate internally. Okay, if I'm validating internally, I can say to myself, well, for 6 weeks, I was succeeding. For 6 weeks, I was getting good results. This is just 1 week. Those 6 weeks outweigh this 1 week. But also we're able to see, well, what were the factors that were causing my success and all of that. And we're able to build it up, where when we're externally validating of every moment, we have to have our external environment or our peer group or whoever's around us constantly validating us, okay? Constantly giving us the positive feedback that we want, that we're progressing forward, that we're moving towards what we want to achieve. Okay. If we lose one moment, 1 week, 1 month, everything starts to erode down. And that's an important thing, especially for me, as I was so dependent on the validation of my environment. So, for example, in sales, I only ever felt successful when I was hitting targets. If I missed targets for a day, I felt like the lowest person, okay? Because I needed my environment, the people around me, and my results. And if I had that, I felt confident. And if one small issue or negative thing was said, I would lose everything I'd worked for that day, that week, the months before, the years before. And what it does, okay, is it created a high level of volatility within me that my beliefs were subject to the results I got or to the external environment. So if that environment shifts and changes, which it always does, okay, we cannot control the environment around us, but we can control how we are in that environment. But to understand that, we have to understand that to control who we are and how we are in our external environment, we need to self-validate. We need to do it internally so that we can keep it stable. Because when we can't validate internally and when we validate externally, okay, we constantly need the external environment to support our thesis. When we validate internally, we just need to constantly support our thesis. So it's much easier for me to believe that I am successful and that I am achieving goals than it is for me to consistently hit results or consistently increase my results. Okay, it's very stressful to do that. I lived that way a long time. But basically, this is the important thing. All right. If I validate externally to myself, okay, I need 100% consistent validation, not 99%, not 50%, 100%. It always has to be 100% if I want to feel 100% confident, or if I want to feel 100% valuable, or if I want to feel 100% attractive, or whatever it may be. Okay. So typically, to other people, what this came across as, all right, was that I was highly egotistical because I was constantly asking for feedback. I was constantly having to build myself up from my results externally, which looked like I was showing off, which looked like I had a massive ego, when in fact it wasn't that, okay? It was that I didn't feel good enough unless I had reassurance from my external environment, from those around me. The same with feeling attractive. I didn't feel attractive unless my external environment or my peers were telling me that. So what that came across as is every time I walked past glass or a mirror or any form of reflection, I had to assess myself, which came across as narcissistic. Like I was checking myself out constantly. But it wasn't that I thought I was more attractive than other people. It was that I wanted to know in this moment, am I attractive? I wanted to know, what were other people seeing? How were they viewing me? And it's very insecure behavior. So it made me look like a highly egotistical, narcissistic, and insecure person, which I was, because all it took was one person to tell me I wasn't attractive, or I was a piece of shit, or anything like that, okay? Or I was egotistical or narcissistic, and then my belief about who I was shaken because my external environment was telling me I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't worthy, or whatever it may be, okay? So what we got to understand is when we're validating ourselves, especially on our appearance, especially on our personality of who we are, our value, and so much more, okay, what happens is we feel like if we're getting that validation, we don't need to constantly ask for support. But as soon as we cease to get that validation, okay, I became highly insecure. I didn't know if I was attractive. I didn't know if I was good enough. I didn't know if I was valuable. Okay. And this led me to personally develop some pretty high codependency issues in my life, codependency on my friends, codependency on my employment. okay, which led me to always have to try and do things for people to make them like me, so that I would always feel like I was a valuable person, because inside I didn't know that, because inside my validation was never rock solid, was never set. Because I was always validating other people's beliefs within me, I had to assess, how am I being presented in comparison to them? How do I compare in comparison to them? And this really made me a highly insecure person, which didn't do well for me, because I never felt confident. I never felt certain in who I was. I would change from moment to moment. If you told me I look like shit, I would feel like shit, right? But when I validate internally, if you told me I look like shit, I would look in the mirror and say, maybe I do, maybe I don't. Doesn't really matter, because how I look, how you think of me doesn't change how I view myself. So when we're able to validate ourselves internally, we're able to have that internal strength of really knowing who we are, of really knowing, our own truth, regardless of it being right or wrong. Okay. So, do you see the problem if I validate externally compared to internally? If I validate externally, I'm like a nerve ending. Okay. All it takes is the slightest breeze and I'm volatile. Okay. Whereas when I internally validate myself, I have this insulation around me of self-belief, of self-value, of self-worth, to where you would really have to do something and really bring me down to get me to shake my view of myself, to shake that belief I have in myself. So if I validate externally, I'll always focus on how I look to others, okay, what they think of me and what they say about me, right? When I'm not around, in essence, it means I need to be hyper vigilant, okay, to everyone around me. And this is true to the form of, when we're codependent, when we're validating externally, we have to be hyper vigilant to every little aspect of people. Are they telling the truth? Are they telling me one thing to my face and then going and talking behind my back? Are they telling me I'm a great person to my face and then saying how much of an egotistical, narcissistic asshole I am? You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that causes us anxiety, social stress, is when we're constantly thinking and worrying about other people. Okay. We can never not be hyper vigilant, not be on alert, So it's very important to really understand the difference between internal and external validation, because the way I put it is, one is an exposed nerve ending and the other is an insulated nerve ending. An insulated nerve ending will take a lot more to affect it than an exposed nerve ending. All right. And this is no way to live. When we're constantly hyper vigilant of what others think of us, how they feel when we're around, the opinions they hold of us. Okay, what do we do as human beings? We create a shell of ourselves. We live less than who we are for fear of being judged for who we truly are, because we don't feel like who we are is valuable. Because unless you've got a supportive network around you of like-minded people who value the authentic you, okay, they're not gonna, you're never gonna feel that way, because the majority of people, okay, in life what they're going to do to make themselves feel better is they're going to bring you down. But also, in saying that, okay, majority of people like me, like you, the defense mechanisms we have when someone, does something we don't like, we feel like we need to attack and bring them down, right? And another big defense mechanism that I personally used to do is creating false masks. That was my protection, that I would create someone who looked like me, but didn't hold or believe what I believed. So what that did is, if you attacked that version of me, it didn't matter because that version of me never existed. Do you get what I mean? So you can attack me for being a dick. I know I'm not a dick. So I would present to you that I'm a dick so that you would attack me for that, because it didn't bother me, because I was okay with it. But the downside is when we create these false masks, these inauthentic versions of ourselves, okay, what we do subconsciously is we draw in and we manifest all those people who align with that version of ourselves. You know what I mean? So they'll support that version, but they won't support the authentic version. And when you show the authentic version, they'll attack you for their belief that you are inauthentic. And all those people who didn't truly like me for who I was, all right, that were around me, that only wanted to be around me for who they thought I was, for that fake mask, what it did is it made me never feel good enough. It made me never feel like who I was good enough. So the key is, when we're validating internally, is we have to construct our opinion of who we are, okay, and our opinion of my thought, what I think, what I feel, and what I believe, and we have to make it higher than anyone else's opinion within us. So what that means is, that doesn't mean that we're better than other people. I'm not better than anyone else. But if you ask me, do I think I'm valuable? My opinion within me is more important and a higher value than what you think of me, because I have to value internally my opinion over anyone else's. Okay, that way, regardless of if I'm right, if I'm wrong, okay, I have that stability of one opinion, of not having to worry about holding 20 different values or 20 different opinions about myself. So an important thing to remember, especially when we're doing our internal beliefs, is we want to construct it based on our true beliefs, our true thoughts, our true feelings of who authentically we are. And the only way to do that is we have to strip down who we thought we were, who we thought we wanted to be. And we have to look at it through the lens of what makes me happy. What makes me happy when I think about myself? What makes me happy when what makes me feel happy about myself? What do I believe are the happy things about me if I want to be happy? So other things as well is, when we're doing this, like, it's not about being biased, okay? So like, for example, I can't have a belief that a good person, okay, will go and rip people off. I can't have that belief. Like, I have to be honest with myself of what is my true thought on a good person. And then if I want to be a good person, I have to live to that standard, regardless of anything else. And I have to be honest with myself and to look at myself and see, when am I being authentic? When am I being inauthentic? I can't lie to myself. That's the biggest regret, not regret, but it's the biggest challenge that we all hold, is that we can never hold a mirror to ourselves. because of fear. So what we do is subconsciously, we lie to ourselves. We tell ourselves that, oh, that's not this isn't that. You know what I mean? Like, I fucked that person over because of this. We have to be truly honest with ourselves if we want to be authentic with ourselves. We have to be transparent with ourselves. We have to look at not the best parts of us. We have to look at the worst parts of us, accept them, and then say, how can I change this? Okay? So it's not about trying to mask over any wrongdoings that I've done in the past. It's about accepting that I'm human and these past events do not own me, because the past is the past. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is right here, right now, and what am I going to do in these moments for the future? So we think about, who do we want to be? Who would I like to be in the future? And what are the actions that that person would take right now? And then I must take them. You know what I mean? So if I believe that I want to be a good person in terms of what I view as a good person, and that's an important thing. You need to define to you what is a good person. You need to define to you what you want to be. Like, you've got to set the definitions, not the environment, not society, not your peer groups. If your peer groups think X and Y equals good, great. That's good for them. You don't do that. What you have to do is you have to determine what equals good for you. Is it Y and Z? Is it T and S? Who knows? So one of the big things is first we have to define everything for ourselves. Okay? What is a good person? What are honorable actions? You know, like, we got to figure out what are the things or the language that we're going to use to describe this person. And then we have to set the boundaries, the upper and the lower limit for those aspects of ourselves. Okay? And then when we do that, that's what we measure towards or against. So we measure our behaviors against them. We measure our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs against what we believe is true. And the point isn't about being right or wrong, because it doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong. Life is life. Actions are actions. You know what I mean? If someone does something to me, it doesn't mean that they're doing it to me. They're just doing it. They're just taking actions. I am just the unlucky person that is in the crosshairs. So if someone is, you know, telling me how much of a douche I am and how pathetic I am and all of that, they're not telling me that. They're expressing that, and I just happen to be the one they're expressing it at. Doesn't mean that I need to accept that or I need to let that in. Because when you shift the focus from this is happening to me to this is just happening and I'm experiencing it, it sets that detachment. It allows us to detach back away from it, okay? And it allows us to then look at it objectively. And we can say, are my actions those of a douche? If I went up and I called someone, you know, a faggot or something stupid like that, and I was a dick to them, I can say, well, yeah, I was a douche in that moment. How am I going to change this for the future? If someone says that I'm, you know, a bitch, you know. So think about times you go to the gym, right? The gym's the best example for this, because everyone's the same in the gym. Everyone's all egos. Everyone's there lifting their weights, working out, giving their best effort, and judging other people in comparison to what they can do. So if I'm working out and I'm lifting, let's say 17.5 kilo on my bicep curls, right? and the guy next to me is only lifting 15s, well, if he tries to judge me, I'm out lifting him. Like, this is how we treat each other. This is how we judge each other. You know what I mean? So we've got to understand that, like, we're not there to compare to other people. And it doesn't matter if someone comes up and they do a fucking 40 kilo bicep curl, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It's irrelevant what they can do and what you can do. You don't know how much damage or pain they're putting in. You don't know how long they've been training. Potentially, they could have taken 10 years to get to that result. Do you understand? So we never want to judge other people, but yet all of our classifications for what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, what's this, what's that, what's successful, what's this, it's all just based off other people's beliefs. How did they come to those beliefs? They don't show you their story about how they came to it. So that's an important thing to remember when validating yourself or your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings internally, is that first we have to define what everything means to us, because meaning is not in our external environment. Meaning is only ever in our internal environment, just like validation, just like self-belief, just like everything. So that's a key thing to remember, is that if we truly want to build from the ground up and we really want to, define who we are and live within our power, we first have to throw away everything that ever was, because it's all lies. Okay? Everything we've learned in society throughout our childhood, throughout growing up, it's all just BS. It's all just bullshit, because it's all based on other people. Like, for example, if there wasn't any scientist to tell you gravity was real and you throw an apple up in the air, does it mean that gravity's not real? No, gravity's still real. But it doesn't need to be defined externally. Potentially, you might think gravity falls at a certain rate. Who knows? Do you understand? Like, you get to decide in this life who you want to be, okay, how you want to feel, what you want to think, what you want to believe, everything. You get to decide everything. Society will try and drag you down, tear you down. It'll bring you down, but you get to decide if it can or if it can't. All right. So this is just a little bit on, what is validation? What is self-validation? I hope this helps. All right. I'll see you in the next one. All right. Bye.